Hello.
Hi.
Are you okay?
It's just me. See
Yeah.
my little nose from my mask.
Oh, so
I had a composite case in last thing. Where's my lenses? That's why I look weird. That's better. I was like, why do I look upside down? Can you see it?
yeah.
It's like constant red Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Is it sore?
Only like if you touch it's a little tender, but yeah. There's no point trying to look nice. You got this all day.
Oh, I don't know. Do you find it with the everything that you feel like you need to just take it off at various points, or?
Yeah, well, it's been better actually because I've moved to my. It's given me spots as well. They're moles, but there's lots of lines. But I've got I'm back in my surgery now, so I have half an hour fallow time in between the appointments.
You can take.
So I'm loving that, except I'm getting so many phone calls and jobs to do that I'm actually like, I end up being more rushed off my feet. It's bizarre, really, because I thought I'd be all really relaxed, but I'm like, oh, I can just get into this job and, filling gaps and stuff like that. But actually I'm finding it much easier because a week ago I was in one surgery back to back and I had like minutes not on my face, and that was awful. I went home, it just feels like someone's pinched you like that, and it was like radiating to my teeth and my head here. So now it's a lot better.
Yeah,
but it just looks a bit red.
No, I can see it's a tiny bit, but here's Joe and Joe.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Joe and Joe.
Is she here? Did I admit I saw her name? Oh, here she is. Hello. Good evening, ladies.
Evening, apologies.
Oh, don't worry. Do you know I had a problem logging in. It wouldn't load. And then I thought I'd logged in the wrong one, but it was fine. Anyway, I was back in no time.
Can you take that?
We are all here. How has everyone's day been?
Yes, good. Sorry, he had a tutoring session from half 5 till half 6. It's only just wrapped up, so it's just like, quick, I need to get on the PC.
Yeah.
His poor tutor has just had to do a session with him and Buddy, the elf. So Buddy the elf was answering a lot of the questions.
Oh, brilliant. You know I'm a fan of the elf. How funny. Yeah, I think the elf will remain in this house for a while because I find it quite amusing.
Yeah.
Why not? So, ladies, this evening we've got quite a bit to cover as we are essentially beginning week 5. I cannot believe where the time has gone.
No, I was thinking, is it 4 or 5? 5. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's week 5 already. And we obviously will be having our mentoring session on the weekend. And as I've shared with you all, I am constantly still going to be available. And if we can continue at a time that suits people to meet up on a weekly basis, then we can arrange that at the end of next Sunday. Okay, but this evening, is Joe there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
You can hear me. Okay. Yeah, feel free to stop me as we're going. We're going to be covering leadership this evening, which, although we haven't spoken about it in the whole complexity of the subject, of the entirety of the subject throughout a webinar before, we have actually been including leadership through everything we're doing, as this is a fundamental element to the success of running any project that you're starting up. So you may already, believe it or not, be quite aware of many of the things that I speak about this evening. We're also going to be speaking about the research side of things, and we have spoken about this along the way, but just covering things in a bit more detail and giving a bit more input, because at the end of the day, what we are here to do is make something sustainable and viable and with an impact. And we are only able to measure our impact by documenting what we're achieving and the findings. And that's why I've been going on about it all the way through write everything down and never, ever stop writing this down because it's so important. Okay. We're then just going to be reflecting on the GDC as we are all governed and registered with the GDC, and it's important that we since we're embarking on a slightly different pathway, that we always feel comfortable and assured of what we're doing. The business side of things are an integral part of what we're doing, so we're going to be covering this. And over the next coming weeks, of course, as things start to evolve, and months, I will be here to support what you need to do on these steps at the time when the time is right. The different types of setup of your business as well. And then finally, your route to market. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering this evening. So I'm going to share my screen now. And here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So welcome to week 5, ladies. So an element that, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at this evening is leadership. As this is so important to get anyone behind what you're doing, or get people intrigued about what you're working on and be part of it, because we've spoken about a team. There is no way on earth we can do anything on our own. Teamwork is a fundamental part. We're all very familiar of it, working within a team, within practice, but it needs to be led in the right way. But first of all, I want you to see I've gone purple from my screen. This is such a bright color slide. Who, according to you, are great leaders? Write them down on a piece of paper. Anybody that comes to mind that you admire. Is it a celebrity? Is it a member of your family? Is it a friend? Who is a great leader in your eyes? Who do you admire? Who do you look up to? Who inspires you again? Keep writing. Just keep writing. Rain shower time. Don't let that pen stop. And now, as you start to write things down, what is it about them? Why are they people you're fascinated by? Why do you look up to them? Why do you ask them if it's someone you know? Why are you intrigued to watch and observe them? What is it that they've done? What makes them, according to you, great leaders? Would anyone like to share anything?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah. So maybe just if you've written more than one, you're happy to share.
I've got Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, my old practice manager Anne, Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu. Why? Well, they were going against the grain to stand up for what they believe in and inspiring strangers to join their cause. And all mostly in a calm and sensible, I don't mean professional, do you know what I mean, in a very civilized manner. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Perfect. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
I put Michelle Obama down as well. I really like her.
Oh, I'm a fan too.
I put all of you guys down as well.
Oh.
You wouldn't be on the course if you weren't trying to lead in your way, would you? So, and I just put a few colleagues like, Siobhan, Tim, Juliet, and people like that. I put Deliciously Ella as well because I really like her. And then I kind of moved on to why do I like them? And I just thought, well, it's people who I think provide wisdom. They're inspiring, not afraid to speak their truth, but but the one thing that comes across more than anything, they're authentically living their lives. They seem real. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else about them?
Well, I kind of got there and I started listening to Joe. But yeah, they just like they just seem really. They seem to be, they're strong, but they're not. But they talk about weaknesses as well. So they're not all about you have to be perfect and strong, and so that's why I think I find them authentic.
Yeah, and I think the ones that I've listed all have a good sense of humour as well, that carries through the hard times.
Beautiful, yeah. Joe, anything?
I had yourself down, Victoria, as well.
Oh,
For your leadership qualities on this course, because I've just found it amazing. My other person I wrote down was my dad. I know he's not a big famous celebrity or anyone, but I've always admired my dad and his leadership qualities. When I was younger, he started. He's had various businesses and things over the years, and his first one went bankrupt when we were younger. And I remember a friend of mine saying how she always admired him, how he picked himself back up and did it again. And he's been really successful throughout his time. And so I always admire my dad. And then I think other people sort of within our industry, people like Julie, past president, who I think has supported the BSDHT very well through the recent pandemic. And I admire Miranda as well, because I think since being, involved in the Southeast group, just watching her go through, both her and Laura actually doing their masters, and now, just watching people progress. It's lovely.
Thank you, Joe. Something that I'm hearing from what you are all saying is, Nina, you mentioned authentic. It's real. If you remember at the beginning of the course, we went back to who you are, what inspires you. And these are all elements to help build you as leaders, as you're not trying to be anything you're not. And what you're saying is you maybe relate to people because they are people you can relate to. They are real. And that is a very important thing because that builds integrity. People believe in what you're doing because it's you. There's nothing else to believe that's not believable because you're not trying to be anything you're not. A resilience, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and your dad, Joe. And this is something standing up for maybe something that's a bit different, which you are all working towards now. You're all building something that is already maybe not something that you've covered before, or that has been covered or even explored before. So you're all building this skill set, and you're acquiring already without maybe recognizing, becoming leaders in what you're doing. And Nina already recognized that in writing people down, and it's wonderful. And never from what you're saying is never ever forget those fundamental core elements that have been focused on throughout, that you keep going back to in your story, because we can't do everything. We never should proclaim we can do everything, and this is very normal. Sometimes we think, oh, can I do this? Am I maybe qualified to do this? Just being having that recognition to know your competencies doesn't need to stop you in anything, as long as you continue to be authentic in yourself, which builds belief in you and your integrity as a leader. frequently people will think that leaders are ahead of everybody. They stand up on a stool. But I'm just going to show you a pedestal. I want to show you something now, which is just a wonderful example of leadership in the simplest form. It's just going to take a few minutes, a link on YouTube. I'm just going to escape from this. Stop my share. I can hear some beautiful singing.
Oh, that's probably Ethan.
as my
He's singing in the
laptop.
bath.
Oh, great! As my laptop's doing the gurgle. It's not. My internet is not. Can you hear me all? Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my internet is a bit slow. Okay, right. Hopefully. Okay. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Tori. 2 seconds. I want to pause this. Right. Now I can share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Can you see
Starting.
my screen now? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, right. So if you can all just watch this for a few minutes. This is an example of leadership. Okay. So that is, you know, it's obviously had 6 million views or something. I think it's that in itself is an example of like what the simplicity of how to explain an explanation of leadership, which brings me back to the key points here through everything that you're working on. Just keep going back to the simplicity, because what you're doing is something to change, something that's not been done before. And the simplicity element and the clarity in your mind, that's why it's so key that you can explain it in the simplest way, that nobody, that even is the furthest thing unrelated to dentistry, for everybody to understand it and for people to get it. And this is why all the research that you're doing is really supporting you understanding exactly what you're going to do, and also gives you that integrity in how you approach it and how you're going to formulate your projects as the years go by, the months go by, moving forward. So that's why you're already leading in what you're doing. You're finding clarity. I'm just obviously, as I expressed at the beginning of last week, or yesterday, everybody's at different phases. But just because Nina's put her presentation together from the point she's at in her project, it's coming clear. It's clarity of her explanations, very clear of what she's looking in doing, and the process. It's becoming clearer, as it will continue to become for all of us in all the work that we're doing. It's going to be public. The followers are the key, and that's why it needs to be so clear so that they get it. It's something different again, something that people may be intrigued about and want to get on board with. But having that confidence again in what you're doing through your market research is an underpinning factor in building the leadership movement in what you're doing. More importantly in all of this, as I said at the beginning of this, everybody's equal, and a leader is not on a pedestal. It's about always bringing everybody into, you know, what you're doing. So leadership may sometimes appear daunting. It can be, but it doesn't need to be, with all the lowering the risk to ensure that what you're doing has the reduced amount of risk for its success. Okay, just going to stop the share and go back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'll share that link if you want to watch it again.
I've seen that video before. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It really is.
I've not seen it with the explanation. I've just seen it as him having a wild time and everyone joining
Okay, yeah. All
I
right.
couldn't really hear the sound on it very well, actually. I was just watching
sorry.
it. But no, so I'm towards the end, I could vaguely hear that someone was talking, so I've written it down so I can go back and look at it.
Okay.
I was just watching it and thinking, I just want to get up and dance. I wanted to join in.
Well, the explanation there is also good, but I've kind of recapped as well on it a bit. Here we go. So here we go back here. So you've already identified why people are leaders in your mind. What is it that entices you into thinking about that, and constantly reflect and recognize? For instance, I'm conscious of many tutors that I really respect, and what was it about them that made me feel comfortable? They made me never feel like I was asking a silly question. Again, that's that equality. Frequently people have leadership skills and they're not even identified themselves as leadership skills, but it's all about others feeling and recognizing things that they can relate to. But what are you understanding from what I'm saying? What is leadership based on?
Are you asking us to answer? Yeah. Yeah, just making sure.
Trust.
Yeah, definitely.
Respect.
Yes.
I think what you said about integrity and authenticity is definitely, I know we've said it, but
and
it's important.
Wow.
But if you are leading something, you're very much, or you're creating something new, you're very much focused on what you're doing to create maybe what you're here to create. But the leadership to lead that, is it based on what you think, or is the leadership built on what others think?
I'd say more others, isn't it? Sort of what
Absolutely, Jo. And that is it. We can try to create something, but until others recognize exactly in that video and what you've already all done, you've identified who leaders are and why. And that's exactly it. So we're focusing on this skill set, but we have to take ourselves away from or building, just being aware of these elements, because it's not ever what we think of ourselves. It's all about what others think. Yeah. And the equality part of it is very important for, as Nina quite rightly said, you know, people that you can relate to, that you know, you feel that you can understand maybe, or you can put yourselves in their shoes. And then when more people seem to be interested in what you're doing, all of a sudden, Jo Dawson, you've already got, and well, all of you have already started to approach so many people. You've got more contacts, and already you're moving forward. You're getting a video done, Jo Downs. You've got the Oral Health Foundation behind you, Jo Dawson. And Nina, you've got endorsement from, you know, NSK essentially, and other people. You've already got people involved. So there's less risk for the first person now. You've overcome this first phase. And the more people that are speaking about what you're doing, you feel more comfortable, rather than being that first one that joins the unknown, you know, crazy person doing something that's so different as was presented in that video. So already you are moving past this phase in what you're doing. Credibility, you've identified that. That's a very important element. And this is why everything comes back to the simplicity and knowing your competencies and your capabilities, and never listening to your gut and never pushing out of that, and staying to your word. When you say that you're going to do something, don't necessarily, I was speaking to Nina about it earlier, you know, in a totally unrelated area, but listening is so fundamental. Yet sometimes when we're trying to move something forward and get people involved, it's very easy to speak a lot about what we're trying to do. And just always being mindful, as we become so enthusiastic about what we're trying to accomplish, of never over promising and then why? Because what that can do is that can jeopardize the credibility, which is so hard to build in the long term. So always, again, going back to the number one lesson of this course, is knowing yourself, being authentic to yourself, being true to yourself, knowing who you are, who you are, and never then moving out of that comfort zone. And if you feel you're moving out of that comfort zone, listening to your body. Going back to Jo often joins me for yoga, Jo Dawson, because it is understanding yourself and listening and not moving out of that comfort zone that could jeopardize that credibility. Because once the credibility is lost, that's very challenging to rebuild. But not for a second am I ever insinuating any one of you would, but just when we become enthusiastic about things, it can something just be having it always in the back of our mind, and not going out of or becoming out of our own depth, yeah, or stepping out of our own depth. The impression you want to create. Now, this is, again, this is all based on what others see of you and observe and what they witness. And this is something you have control over, of course, as do all the other elements that we're discussing. But what is the impression that you wish to create? And this is sometimes you can fall into this area of maybe building something, and this is why it's important to take the time and understand your market and do your market research, that the impression and the elements and the characteristics of what you are creating through the course, the masterclass. What is it, Joe Dawson? What is it about the raisins? What are the other aspects that we're going to include? For you, Joe Downs, I'm going to relate it back to the Smart Revolution, as this is something that's obviously I'm very aware of, that I work on day in, day out. And I've spoken about it before, but the impression that I want everyone to have a good, positive experience. It should be slightly effortless. I don't want it to ever become heavy and a headache, and maybe I don't want it to become a weight. I want it to catapult people forward in some direction, or if whatever the element is, what is the impression? And that's why formulating everything from the market research starts to help you formulate this impression part of it, and also understanding your audience, your values. Who are you? Going back to the beginning of this course, knowing what is important to you. Nina frequently speaks about just wanting to help others, and we all do in our profession. That's what we're all about. But your values, you're wanting to make a change to support the public's oral health, and where do your values lie? And just again, going back to your story again and again, because this all underpins the leadership of what you are creating. Okay. Now, we've gone into this again and again about you documenting everything down. Leadership will be something we'll continue to maybe not directly discuss through what we're doing, but it will be underpinning everything we do and building on that. Okay. And research has an impact on the leadership, of course, as there's an awareness that can be created through the research and what you're documenting. And anybody that's going to be investing, if it's industry, even if it's maybe a non-industry player, maybe even it's a crowdfunding opportunity, or it could be a silent investor. The research is going to underpin the credibility and the integrity of what we're doing. Research can happen in varying different capacities. It can be as simple as just collating the data you've already been collating, and it can be becoming far more scientific in your approach, without intention to be publishing in scientific journals, going through ethics committees, quantitative and qualitative. And what the point of this is, we want to have an impact. And I may not be the right person to guide you on the area of research that you may be looking into. And this is where, again, you look at your team members, of who can advise you. Recently, I've been awarded a grant fund for some research that I'm involved in, and I can certainly support each one of you in applying for a grant in research if this is of interest to you. But you don't have to necessarily go down that route from the outset. But I'd like to think down the line, this is something that we can, at various, maybe years down the line, striving towards. But that doesn't stop any one of us now from writing up already what we are understanding from what we're doing, as to the simplest parts of your aims and your objectives, your process of what you're doing in formulating your masterclass, even, Nina. and presenting your findings so far, presenting the need to justify your route to deliver what you're intending to deliver. Again, Joe Downs, the process, I'm not aware of any oral health program that has been run out before supporting performers. And how interesting, you know, publishing something on this as well of what you've started to uncover till now. You don't need to necessarily publish something now, but it can be down the line. Already, Joe Dawson, I think you've already got a piece to write up in itself of how you've run it out in your daughter's school to date. And this is content in the varying degrees of research, of presenting facts of what we've collated till now that we can start to present to support what we are doing and our pathway and your individual pathways into why you're deciding what you're deciding at various different points along the way. It also is a reflective process in the writing, and from that you uncover so much. As an example, hence I'm always really intent on asking for evaluation form backs at the end of a course, because everything we're doing, we're looking at improving on and we're learning from. And the deeper our learning is installed within us from every process that we are tapping into at this point, the further we can go, and also we can justify what we're doing. Now, there are funds and grants available when you do go down maybe slightly more scientific research, if you wish to embark on that, and even maybe fellowship opportunities down the line, or even PhD opportunities. There's no limit to how far you wish to take this. There are varying different bodies. A body that I've been studying for a while is the NIHR, the National, I've frozen, can you see me? NIHR, the National Institute of Health Research. And there are different PhDs available, and I never necessarily thought a while ago that it was going to be a viable option for myself, you know, to explore this, but things are opening up for us as professionals, and this is why it's a wonderful opportunity now for us to be moving forward in this direction. Things are changing, and constantly just be aware of funds that could be available to support the work you're doing from a research standpoint. And don't be maybe overwhelmed, as it can be overwhelming to think, could I necessarily do this? We will, well, I'll support you as best I can, and I'm sure each one of you will support each other in sourcing the right people to support you. And we individually have networks out there, and it's I think humbling also that people are there and they're very giving with their time to support what we don't know. And there will always be areas we don't know, but this is going to be such an important element of what you're going to be working on moving forward. Okay, so never ever fail to miss an opportunity to write anything down that you are doing, and the process as well of what you've done and your findings and the challenges that you've faced in that process. Okay. The GDC. Now there are obviously social guidances on what we can and we can't do. From a confidentiality standpoint, we have to be obviously very careful in publicizing any patient's information in what we're doing. And this is something that's always sat with me, that I've never felt comfortable sharing really much on social media, and it's taken me a long time to get into social media and for me to feel comfortable from a GDC standpoint that I am doing what I can do within my realm as a DCP. So if in doubt, go back to the standards, continue to reflect back on that. I'm just going to just stop my screen share for a moment, just to take you into just one of those, the basic documents that's, I think, readily available for all of us. Well, from a GDC standpoint. There we go. So I know, Joe Dawson, you're not involved really much on social media. Can you see? Oh, hang on. Involved that much on social media, but moving forward, it's
Well,
yeah.
aside from the carefulness thing, I just
Mm.
think, how much time is it going to take up? I mean, does it over,
Good question. Ladies, do you have any input on that? Because we're all on social media.
It gets easier once you kind of work your way around it, I think. And maybe if you're good at setting yourself boundaries at times when you'll respond to things. I guess it just depends what you're hoping to get out of it, I guess. Because like sometimes I put things on to attract patients, so obviously I have to respond a lot to those people, but then other times I'll put a post on which is more dental and to put out there, and that doesn't get so much. So if you're not trying to attract patients, you're not getting lots of people that you've got to reply to, but you're kind of doing some awareness. It might be a good way of, does that make sense? Starting out, I guess. But it's just like when you first do it, it's like learning how to post, hashtag, and all these kind of things can be quite time consuming, and all of a sudden it just clicks. And then even just things like fitting a post into a post, there's apps to do it and things, and it's just a case of just working all of that out, and once you have it, it just gets so much easier. Would you agree, Victoria?
Oh, 100%. And I think as well, I agree with you, like it can be very time consuming, but being structured in your approach is like when, we have time to work, we know that we've got to do this and not allow it to interrupt what we're doing. For instance, now there's no way I would look at my phone. Yet it can be quite easy when messages and posts and notifications keep coming through, to just be on your phone all the time. But you have to be quite strict with your time so that it doesn't encroach on your time. And I was listening to, I think I've shared before, Holly Tucker. I'm just such a big fan of her. She's fabulous I think, she supports obviously small businesses and is so supportive in business development in general. And she spoke about this this morning actually on something I was listening to. And you have to be structured. And there was something that was shared about life as an orchestra and harmony. Everything needs to work within one another. And it being something new that can come into your personal life, and not allowing it to necessarily cut, and setting your boundaries. You don't have to reply to a message the minute it comes in. You can reply to it for the hour that you set from, I don't know, from 6 to 7 p.m. maybe, to go through your social media for the day, but it can take over. So you have to be aware of that, and having this conversation now I think is invaluable. Joe Downs, do you have any input?
Yeah, I mean, my dad's terrible for Messenger. Like, he'll send you a message, and if you haven't replied within half hour, he'll send me a message going, "Hello." I'm like, "That's not life, Dad." But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I find what I love about it is I keep in touch with a lot of people in the profession that aren't close to me. And I suppose it's networking with other people, isn't it? But I mean, even like some of my friends from uni, I feel like, because we went to uni in London, then we've all gone off our own separate ways. And I feel like I'm keeping in touch with them because I'm seeing what's going on in their day-to-day life, although I'm not. And sometimes that's not always a good thing, because sometimes would you pick up the phone more to have a chat with someone if you weren't seeing what was going on their Facebook page? But I do feel, especially for my two closest friends that I went to uni with, one of them's in Wales now, and if I see pictures of them, what they've been up to work-wise or with their children, I do feel like I've kept in touch. That is the positive side of it for me.
I think that's a good point, being aware of the positives and maybe the negatives, and setting the boundaries for the negatives and embracing the positives. And it says here, as you can see, it's an effective way of communicating both personally and professionally. But constantly going back to the standards of the dental team and recognizing to always, of course, and not that I would doubt anyone to do anything within this group, but anything differently, but always act as a professional, and maintaining your values and integrity and credibility online as you would within your clinical setting and as you are. And I feel that we as professionals, act probably, at work, and, it kind of filters through into our home life, who we are as people, as we are also professionals. But we've probably all witnessed it on social media, maybe Joe Dawson not as much as maybe Nina and ourselves. Sometimes you see people maybe ranting about something, and you don't have to comment, you don't have to be anything to do with it. And I think it's obviously recognizing, isn't it, what to be involved in and what not to. And I'm not somebody that comments much on things. Maybe you can just like something, or if you wish to direct message somebody, but then there's a time and a place, and I guess you find your voice, don't you, on social media. It's a very helpful platform within work.
You have to learn the art of scrolling on, don't you? I mean, I do.
Yeah.
If I don't like something or something upsets me, I just scroll on, and it does.
Yeah.
I mean, this going for example, like the school mums, that there's a Joy Lane parents page, and the way some of the parents talk to each other on there, I think we're trying to teach our children how to behave on social media, or how to talk to each other. And don't say something on a keyboard or behind a screen that you wouldn't say to somebody's face. And yet I find sometimes the parents are the worst. And I just think, we're trying to encourage and set an example for our children. It can be a bit like that on the hygiene forum sometimes as well, can't it?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of posts recently, 2 different posts, where people have been complaining about the fact that they haven't had the free IO brush, and I think
I've seen about 15 of those.
Have you? Oh God, I think I've only seen 2, but I'm just like, hygienists complaining because they haven't been given the free electric toothbrush, and some people have, and I just think, it's things like that I just think I scroll on.
And once it's public for life. So I think that's something, again, maintaining your professional identity as well. Like, it can't be removed. Once it's there, it's there. And obviously starting to find a voice in a different way, always having your end sight in mind, and what's the GDC all about is protecting the patients. And we wish to also protect our professional identity and the perception of the profession through our work. So being mindful of that in everything that we do. And I think it's also important to recognize that there's also, if you are going to be public about things, for instance, you need to protect yourself as well, working with others, and having a disclaimer if you think there's any potential risk of exposing yourself as a professional. You can do things online, but if it's not you saying something involved with what you're doing, it's not necessarily your words. It doesn't come from you, and it mustn't affect your professional identity as such. So having a disclaimer where is needed, and published in the right way, for instance, things like that, and being mindful of that in everything that you're doing. Okay. And it would come into play, and these are things to just be thinking about. This is obviously the how, and things to think about in building your project, as things filter in at the point, then would be the time to discuss and reach out to other sources if you need support in doing that. Okay, but just being mindful of all these elements. I'm just going to stop the share here, but yeah, I'd obviously go into the standards of a dental team and continue to reflect back on that. Although I have to say, I think the GDC standards are so ingrained in us in everything that we do, but always obviously reflect back. And if in doubt, you can contact them, or contact your indemnifiers as well. Right, so now let me just remove that.
I was going to say, the one thing I really like about the messages as well is, you don't have to open them until you're ready, do you? So it doesn't. So people, I always think that, you know, if you accidentally open one, you think I've got to reply now because I'll forget if I don't. So I think the main thing is, like you say, setting the boundaries and only opening them as and when you have time for.
Yeah.
I think because people can see, can't they, if you've opened them or not.
Yeah. Oops, we're going on. Yeah, absolutely. So that covers, you know, just being mindful. It's being aware and never, ever losing sight, keeping this at the back of our mind. Now your businesses. Okay. And again, this is going to come into its own later as things start to evolve. But you've already started to identify who potentially your target audience is. Who are your customers? Okay. But as you're identifying through your market research who your customers are, what we can't lose sight of, we can be idealistic in who we want our customers to be and who we think they are, but are they really the ones, and it comes to the end of the day, that holds the purse strings? And it's about talking to the people and knowing and understanding what is it that is going to make the change. For instance, Nina, since you shared within the class the other day, what is it that NSK are working on at the moment as they potentially, you know, are looking at maybe funding what you're doing? What is their intent? What is their area of interest? And having those meetings to understand who is the person that decides, because the person that maybe you're having the conversation with may not be the deciding factor. For instance, industry players I've worked with before, I have huge advocates maybe lower down the chain that feed back to the person higher up the chain. But it's important to know really who holds the purse strings and how to reach them. And you don't necessarily have to have a meeting, but again, going back to their vision and their mission of what their objective is, and maybe the vision and the mission for, I don't know, let's say Henry Schein is oral systemic, yet we are coming to them with all of our projects. Maybe then it's time to start to think of, maybe it's not directly linked to the project now, but this is when another element of the project starts to shape the project, because we have to make it sustainable and viable. How we're actually approaching them, maybe we incorporate an element of that in the overall objective of what we're trying to do, if it's related. But then again, we don't want to risk adjusting our project for the intent of funding when it also doesn't serve the project in the right way. So that's why, again, we must stay authentic to who we are, what we're doing, what we've found out till now. And if there is an opportunity, as opportunities are always what we're looking for, to adapt slightly, to be able to access those purse strings, if it's applicable and going to serve the project in the right way, because we are remaining to always focus on our integrity as well, of who we are and what we are trying to achieve, and never ever fall into, and it was discussed yesterday, which was so appropriate, to somebody else's mercy as such, for them to start to own what you are doing. Okay, so holding on to your project and understanding how to do that. For instance, for you, Joe Dawson, maybe there's a potential for funds in the school now. Is it talking to the mums? Is it talking to the teachers? Is it talking to the governors? Is it talking to the bursar? Who is it to talk to that actually is the person that makes the change? And, you know, how to have those conversations. Again, you know, I'm happy to always brainstorm around this, as I've had many meetings with financial decision makers, which has helped me develop my approach, which varies and changes constantly based on what I found out and what I've already gone through till now. But and then allows you to also shape your project in a slightly different way, because we still are going back to it being sustainable and viable. You know, if it's Andrew Lloyd Webber, which I hope it is, Joe, who's going to fund this down the line, you know, he just wants the theatre to get back to being what the theatre, you know, and he's such a passionate individual, you know, individual. Like, what is it that, who they are, what inspires them as well. And also, again, we are such people being in dentistry, appealing to other people, understanding people, understanding what type of person they are. How can we filter in to excite them, finding them, allowing them to see the opportunity in what we're doing. Yeah, so again, opportunity, like I said at the beginning, and you probably read about the course, it's me formulating everything that I've learned that's both most fed the smart revolution in all of everything over the last years that's built what I'm working on now. But it all comes back to the opportunity to who you are and what inspires, and that's integral throughout, and also your target audience. Time of the year, if you're going for funding, when you're working with industry, it's now. So we have not necessarily totally missed it, but you want to have your pitches ready at the end of October, ideally, and be speaking and having made those connections throughout the year, so that for their financial forecast, it's not fully locked, but it pretty much gets locked end of November time, moving forward to the next financial year. So for sponsorship and things like that, that doesn't necessarily mean for other opportunities like grants and investment from a silent partner or crowdfunding, whatever it's going to be. That may vary slightly, but regarding industry, it's now. So it's good to be having that conversation, Nina, now, you know. The business, I keep going back to the numbers. The numbers are very important, because as you obtain more market research, you're going to start to understand what is going to cost, and constantly be writing these down as your research. Okay, just going to take you through this. You've already got this, I believe, in one of the presentations I shared with you. But if you're looking for investment, and this is people investing, return of investment. Now, this isn't something that I have a huge amount of experience in, because I don't wish to apply this model to what I'm doing, as I'm more for the interest of benefiting communities, and from a social responsibility standpoint. There's not a huge amount of return of actual investment for others in this, but there's a benefit to elevating and supporting community, which has a massive value to any industry or organization in itself. So writing down the costs and understanding, you still need to understand the cost and running costs of your business. Is it going to be you having to employ somebody, or is it going to be you outsourcing and paying somebody to do something that you're not able to do? Knowing your limitations, again, going back to that one slide at the first lecture of who you are. Knowing what's comfortable for you, what you wish to formulate, and moving forward with that, and bringing people in that you are not your comfort zone. For instance, you cannot avoid getting a statistician, and I keep getting this word wrong. When you're doing your research, you have to pay them. So that would be something that would be a variable cost for me, sorry, my mouse isn't working, as my projections move forward for year 2, year 3, year 4. I may not be involved in research all the time, but my fixed costs, for instance, for the Smart Revolution, I've always got an editor. I can't edit. I've already shared, I've had a failed podcast. It's not within my comfort zone. So I pay for an editor. I have to pay for an editor, and that's ongoing. I have to pay for all my subscriptions for my editing software, and varying other subscriptions, my indemnities for instance, my yoga, my additional training, and all the elements that make up the Smart Revolution. And it's important to have that, again, on a spreadsheet. So you'll create a page within your spreadsheet for all the costs that you can think of. You can't just throw a cost at marketing. You need to obviously really understand your marketing strategy and your route to market. Again, this starts to be uncovered through your market research. And then once you've got the fixed cost down, you've got, I've just put some numbers in here, just hypothetically, you've got the revenue that you wish to generate for the first year. What do you wish to bring in? Is that sponsorship, or is this a silent partner coming in some capacity? But let's go hypothetically with sponsorship. You wish to get £500 in. Obviously, this is not realistic for the first year, but then your variable costs are £100. Your fixed costs are £200. You can't get away from that. So what's the gross profit? Overall, it's £200, but the gross profit margin is the percentage. And adding all these figures up, as simply as I hope I've explained it, to input in something like this is what you need. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you.
No, sorry, going back to the percentage thing, you've just said 200 out of 500 is 40%. Is that what you've said? Is that how you got it?
The gross profit margin.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're talking about the gross profit. 200 out of 500 gives you the 40%.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you need to just understand from your overall costs where all of these really fit in. And this is the most basic form of projections, financial projections moving forward. But this is particularly important as you see a growth in your business, as you see the phases develop in your business, because you want to be sure that you're going to be able to cover the next phase. As we've all spoken about how the projects are going to develop over time, there's going to be more expenditure over time. But I'd always recommend with what we're doing to reduce and limit our expenditure as much as possible, so that again we have control over what we're doing, so it doesn't escalate out of our comfort zone and it starts to build organically as things organically grow, and you get the feedback and you respond to the feedback based on the community's need, because this is what we're here to serve. Does that make sense? Now, types of setups. You can set up a limited company. I'm really sorry, I've gone over. Are you all okay for time? Yeah. Types of setups. So you can set up a limited company. Your accountant can do that. Some of you may already have a limited company and doing what you're doing. And that can run from an investment standpoint. If you do get an investor in, it can run from a sponsorship standpoint. But what it can't do so much is it cannot help support you getting funding and grants, because a limited company has no earnest to the communities that is there to serve. And generally funding would come in to serve communities. So from my knowledge and what I'm aware of at the point I'm at in my work, is a social enterprise is the way for us to move forward as oral health promoters, because it gives the investors, the funders, the confidence that the finances that are spent there's a transparency, because it has to be made public, and that it is there to serve the community. Now that you can set up a charity, you could set up a kit, you could set up various different social enterprises. Charity is quite complex in its entirety. Has anybody been involved in charity work or setups of any charities in the past?
Not really, no.
No.
Not at that level, no.
There's lots of
Sorry, no, I just said not set up. So obviously charity things, but not the setup.
So there's lots of red tape that's involved. You need lots of people that represent it. You need to have everything's public about it. And your hands are quite tied in some capacity. Now, I'm not degrading a charity in any way, but from my research and my understanding now, it's not necessarily the best opportunity for us in oral health promotion. But a KIC, which is a community interest company, something that can align, because you do have a bit more flexibility in what you're doing. You have to be transparent in what you're doing, and it is there to serve the public. and communities around us. So it does entitle you to funding, but there is just it's a bit more of the mid zone between a charity and a limited company. Okay. It's something you can set up yourself, but it's also helpful to have accountants to work with you on the setup. It is more complex setting up a community interest company in comparison to a limited company, as you need far more documents, quite a few more documents in place. But also it's important, if you are setting up like any company, you need to know all the aspects of it to know exactly where you stand. But yeah, that I think is as much as I'm going to talk about this now, because you're not at that point yet, but moving forward you may well be. And Nina, if things were to move forward quite progressively with NSK, you wouldn't necessarily need, if you've already got a limited company set up, it may be something you can also encompass under that for now. Okay. But just to give you an idea, for you, Joe Dawson, I think definitely a kick, and probably Joe Downs, you could do a mix of a limited company and maybe a kick. Do you have a limited company already?
No, I did a couple of years ago, but I shut it down.
Okay. Yeah.
So I didn't feel I was getting any benefit from it, really.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? You need to understand if it is benefiting you or not. So we've gone through pretty much everything, the elements that are included in how to and things to consider in setting up an oral health promotional project now. The market research will continue to be ongoing. All the elements that we've discussed in having the most compliant oral health promotional project that was covered in week 2 needs to be integrated as we understand more from our audience and formulate our project. The leadership elements are fundamental, and continuing the market research, which is key throughout, will be ongoing, as I've said. And understanding, as you already are starting to understand, who your audience are. And how you're going to reach them. And we've already spoken about that. There are varying different routes of how you can reach your audiences. But bearing in mind, it's got to be profitable. And as you continue to do your market research, you will uncover more opportunities. And it's all about continuously uncovering the opportunities to access the funds to make it a sustainable, because this is what it's all about. We cannot volunteer our time anymore. It's totally viable to gain the funding to make it sustainable. And I'm here to support you through this moving forward when you're at that point. But how are you going to get to market now? Okay. But we're not at the getting to market point just yet, because we're still in the market research side of things. But everything that's been covered should give you all the tools of things to consider as you're taking these projects forward. Okay. Any questions?
I'm just so excited.
Good. I'm so happy to hear. You know, it's not easy. And I hope that as passionate as I am about oral health promotion and supporting everybody in getting oral health promotional projects up to support the public's oral health, because I know it's a place for us to help to overcome oral health inequalities. It has its huge challenges, and already I've learned so much from all of you, and I would just hope that we continue to share, and you are supporting each other already moving forward, and we will have obviously our Sunday meet up this week to discuss things further from what you're doing this week. But I think from today, I'm not going to share a task with you. I think I'm here to talk to you. I'm already speaking to Joe Downs on Thursday, and Joe Dawson when you want to speak to me, and Nina as well, you know, to help also lay out from more of a structured mentoring side of things now of what you need to be working on, what you're uncovering yourselves each week, to continuously support it moving forward. It has a place. It's just lowering the risk by finding out as much of this as possible. And if you get the urge to write something up, go for it now. There's nothing stopping you. You've already learned and done so much. You've already understood so much from your work in your individual projects. Any questions?
No, I feel like I'll probably like to touch base with you. I mean, I know I already rang you before this tonight.
Keep calling me. That's what I'm here for.
But yeah, because I've got a few people I want to speak to tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow afternoon or Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. Wednesday would be
touch
good.
Base. Yeah,
touch base on Wednesday. Let me just Wednesday. Yes. Maybe 10ish.
Yeah, I'm free all day, so anytime.
Yeah. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, that's in my diary. And Joe Downs, can I say 11:30?
Yes.
I said 11, but can I say 11:30 on Thursday? Is that okay?
Fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Dawson, just let me know.
Well, I could do Wednesday if that's
Okay.
good for you.
Yeah.
You tell me time.
I should be done by 12 from a meeting. So shall we provisionally put in 12? If I'm running late, I'll message you.
Okay, that's great. Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. And start also being curious about funds, because it's not going to be related to dentistry necessarily, but just look out for things because there are things running all the time. But that's why I would definitely advocate exploring the social enterprise setup in a nutshell, rather than you doing all the work in comparison to other setups, and there are obviously opportunities as well. I will work with you in some capacity, if that's something of interest as well. But as much as I can continue to support all your work, because I'm excited to see how things evolve and the impact that they're going to have. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure. I will upload this one. I will. You can access it now. So, and then I'll speak to you throughout the week, and I'll see you all at 6 p.m. on Sunday. Yes. And just keep beavering away and calling and speaking and developing and get me to share as much as possible.
There's just one more thing before. Sorry, Nina, do you have any basic information about the nutrition value of raisins?
I can certainly get you some. As far as I know that before they were high in sort of fibre and there's a few sort of minerals, but obviously the sugar side you're interested in as well, isn't it?
If you could just give me the full nutritional blurb, that would be amazing.
Yeah. And the packs that the kids normally get out, do you know how much they normally weigh?
Yeah, I'll show you. 25 grams.
25
Quite
grams.
a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that will help me to give you the right amount for the kids' snacks
Little
as
boxes.
well.
The little boxes you can get are usually about 12 or 14, but the kids at school actually get these 25 grams.
25 grams. Okay.
And this is a mixture of raisins and sultanas, if that makes any difference. I don't know.
Okay, I'll write that down.
Do you want me to send you a photo of the back of the packet? Would that be useful?
Yeah, you can do. You've got my email, haven't you? Now in the group of the emails together, and I'll have a look and send something back to you.
Thank you. That would be really brilliant. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Joe Daz, I wanted to ask,
Anything in return.
did you manage to get hold of anyone at BSDHT to find the numbers yet on the response?
Not yet, because
No, don't worry.
Selena doesn't work Mondays.
Oh, okay.
So I thought I'll give it a couple of more days to see if it's had more shares as well. But I did get a Den plan number today.
Oh, brilliant.
When I've been at work, so I went in and had a rummage in the office and I found a number for a Den plan contact. So that's,
and I befriended as many as I could on LinkedIn. So I will see if anyone replies. Okay. All right. Have a
Thank you so much.
rest of the evening, good week, and good luck with all your work.
Thank you.
If you do write anything up, let me know. I've got lots of channels to publish things as well, if anybody wants to. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.